Country Talk Radio. You're in to all things music.
Welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
Welcome, everybody, to Intersect Radio. It's Tuesday again, and I'm glad you all joined in for this conversation. It's going to be a great show today. Before we get started, though, I'd like to say thank you to Pitbull Audio and the folks at SIR and all my friends over at Innovative Percussion for the great sticks that they provide for me and the friendships and the hangs, and I hope they're listening. I know they're busy working, but I hope they can sneak away and listen today. I have a very special guest. NewReleaseToday.com called today's guest The Voice. That otherworldly, stopping your tracks, goosebump-raising voice to put the stamp of distinction on the music of DC Talk. A voice only rivaled in the history of rock music by Robert Plant and Freddie Mercury. My guest today is that once-in-a-generation voice, Mr. Kevin Max, the Max Factor. How you doing, man?
Wow, that's quite an intro, man. I'll just say I think
true.
I can live up to that, though.
Oh, you're living up to it. Don't worry about that.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
So,
yeah.
Let's tell everybody today your son Wilder is having a 10th birthday party, and
yes,
we're gonna try to get together face to face, but birthday party rules, man.
It's his 10th today. I'm sitting in front of a place called Above All Extreme Air Sports, which is his choice. He's an extreme sports lover. He's the guy that wants to go, 120 miles per hour. He'll jump on my Harley with me, much to my wife's chagrin, and want me to go really fast. But I try to be as careful with that guy as possible. But he loves to live it fast, and so he's swinging on ropes right now and jumping on trampolines and having the time of his life.
That's cool. Well, you be sure to tell him that everybody here at Intertalk Radio and everybody listening to this program today wishes him a very happy 10th birthday.
I will. Thank you. Thank you all.
Let's get into it. You're very welcome. So, Grand Rapids, Michigan is your home. 1967, eh?
Yep.
What was that
I turned the
like,
big 5-0
growing up in Grand
this
Rapids?
year. Well,
okay.
I mean, Grand Rapids is, it's not too far from Detroit. It's really close to Holland, which is by the beach, and you say a beach, but Lake Michigan. And it's kind of a town that's known for things like furniture, steel case, and it's known for Amway, Rich DeVos.
Really?
My dad was Rich DeVos actually born and raised and started Amway there in Grand Rapids. In fact, my dad, who's a CPA, still working in his mid-70s, used to do a lot of stuff with Rich DeVos. As far as they were friends, they were on all sorts of boards and committees all over Grand Rapids together. So I was raised in Grand Rapids. Adopted as a baby. I Loved
by
rock
the
and roll.
Smith family. I didn't
By
know
the
you were a
Smiths.
Smith.
I know, what a great last name. I just I had problems with Kevin Smith because there was another Kevin Smith out there that everybody knew, and so I'd always get like, "Are you the director?" And I'm like, "No, I'm the singer." And so we decided to just keep my last name as my middle name in the mid '90s when DC Talk started becoming something. And Toby used to call me K-Max all the time. That was my nickname, even as far back as high school. So I went as K-Max a lot. I mean, you go as A-Train. I went as K-Max, and it was kind of like, it stuck. So I was like, man, I'll just change my name to Kevin Max. Why not? You know?
Yeah, I went as a lot of things, but we won't go into that. So your family's a Christian family, I take it?
My adoptive parents, yes, they were.
Yes.
My dad grew up in Indiana. My mom grew up. She was actually from a Mennonite family, so really strict. My dad, not so much. My dad is the ultimate, weekend cowboy. We grew up on a piece of land outside of Cascade, and we would ride horses and get on the tractor and bale hay and all sorts of stuff like that. Even though he was a CPA, he'd come home, take his suit off, and then put his really, really dirty jeans on and really messed up cowboy hat and walk out to the barn and saddle horses and stuff. So it was an interesting upbringing, man.
That's great, man. So you didn't particularly attend church regularly as a kid?
No, I did. We grew up.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I grew up going to a Baptist church in Grand Rapids. And then when I was a little older, I started going to a non-denominational with a couple of my friends, and so yeah, I grew up in the church culture for sure. Yep.
Did you participate in any organizations at church? Did you start singing in church choir or anything like that?
Yes. I started singing really, really early on, to the point where, it was kind of baffling some people how this little, 5 or 6 year old kid could sing with vibrato, And so I started singing in church pretty early, actually. And then in school, they would put me in, I think the first time I ever really got up on stage in front of a bunch of people was probably like 4th or 5th grade, some school play. And I was singing in that. And throughout the years, I would be the guy that would get up and sing a solo up until my high school years, where I think it was like 10th grade, I sang for an Easter cantata and at my high school and did a big standout solo. And I tried real hard to sound like Stevie Wonder. And I did pretty good. And, all these people were coming up to me afterwards like going, wow, you can sing like that and you're a white guy? It's amazing, And I got my first girlfriend off that too. Cheerleader from another school heard me singing and thought that I was really cool. So she
the Pied Piper.
She wanted to date me after that.
Yeah. So is that the encouragement you were getting at home and at church and at school? Is that what gave you the impetus to like pursue poetry and singing as a career, or did you have something else in mind ever? It was definitely attributed to the fact that I kind of lived out in the country, even though Cascade, Michigan wasn't really country, but it was outside of the city by about 35 minutes. We lived on about 12 acres, had horses and whatnot. And my childhood was spent, mainly outdoors. And then when I wasn't outdoors, I was reading. I had a voracious appetite for reading books and listening to music. And I was listening to all of the great rock and roll stuff on my record player growing up. I had a neighbor next door neighbor that introduced me to everybody from the Beatles to ELO to, David Bowie. And
So I kind of grew up listening to rock and roll. I was really into sci-fi fantasy books. I read a lot of books like J.R. Tolkien. I read Frank Herbert Dune, Stephen R. Donaldson. So I was really into sci-fi fantasy and rock and roll. And for some reason, I feel like I've blended that into what I do as a solo artist these days. So,
yeah. Did you ever think about doing something else, or were you just hell bent on being a singer?
Not really. Yeah, I never really felt like I'd do anything else. I mean, I was kind of swept up into the vortex of music, and I never returned. You know. I think it was really around that time when I started singing in high school in plays and singing for, things in choir, and people started recognizing the fact that I had a talent, that I started going, okay, I can do this. I remember mowing the yard one day and listening to a cassette player of Queen, The Game. It was Queen's The Game album. And Another One Bites the Dust in particular stood out to me. And I remember hearing Freddie's voice, listening to the bass line of John Deacon, and just going, that's what I want to do. That was kind of the moment where I was like, I want to do this,
What theater productions were you in high school?
Yeah, so I was on Fiddler on the Roof. Don't ask me which character I played, because I'll not be able to remember that. Man, we did this thing called Ride, which I never really understood what that was either. I think my drama teacher actually put that together. Might have written that one. And then some various things I can't really remember. Just different, choir ensembles that would get up in front of the school and sing, or get up in front of different churches. I mean, I toured with the choir from my high school all over, Michigan and Ohio, singing at different churches. And so I would be the guy that would take the tenor lines and the tenor solos, and, but my heart was in rock and roll. So it was kind of like, I got brought up in the church, and I was singing, in the church as a kid, but I had my aspirations set on starting a band. And it wasn't until I went to college that I actually started my first band, which we called it the Connection Band. Horrible name. And then
what were you connecting?
I think we were trying to connect people to the music, but we weren't connecting with the name of the band. So I changed it to Justice for All was the name of the band then. And I thought Justice for All was like a killer name,
Did you graduate high school in 85?
85, man. I mean, so many great things happening in music at that point, And, I was privileged to grow up in the 70s too, when music was still really amazing on the radio and whatnot. Of course, I was born in the 60s, so I wasn't able to live through that. But, 85 was the year. Our class was a bunch of ruffians that almost didn't get to walk. We almost didn't get to do our graduation walk because we were up to some shenanigans. Like we broke into the school and filled all of the classrooms with those little tiny styrofoam balls. Pranks like that got us in a lot of trouble,
Oh man, that's cool.
I think we hung a flag outside of our school. In fact, I know we did. It had a picture of all of us breaking out of prison, and it said breaking out of school at 1985 or something like that. They didn't like that either. So
yeah, was this a private Christian school you went to?
Yeah, I went to public school in elementary up until middle school, and then I went to a private, middle school up into high school. It was, at the time, it was called Grand Rapids Baptist Academy. Now it's called North Point Christian, and
Okay.
Grand Rapids Baptist Academy Mustangs, and very small private school in Grand Rapids, but still a great school. Lots of good people, really good staff. Yeah, so I was lucky enough to kind of live that. Yeah, I'm dealing with that right now with my kids. Do I keep them in public school or do I send them to private? I'm kind of either or, and my wife has been homeschooling our children a little bit. So we've kind of gone all the way across the board. I mean, I don't really have anything against any of them. I just didn't like school in particular. So.
Well, you sure did graduate at an interesting time in music. It's like you had groups like Wham, Madonna,
Prince Purple Rain. Prince Purple Rain was like one of our main albums in '85, I think. You know.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, that was one of our school's like main albums that we would play all the time. I mean, you know, I remember when Dove's Cry came out, and I was hanging out with a friend of mine in high school, and she had this car that she could put her top down. It was like a really nice convertible and like really cool. And she played When Doves Cry, and I was like, man, this is the coolest moment ever. Sitting in a convertible, you know, Prince blasting as loud as it could be. Yeah.
Yeah. So did you watch the movie a lot? Purple Rain?
I did. I think I watched it like 2 or 3 times, you know. Again, another one was, my favorite was China Girl, David Bowie. When Let's Dance came out, that was along the same time. You know, I was a big fan of Duran Duran. I tried to look like Duran Duran. Actually, I would wear my hair like them, and I would stand in front of the mirror wearing Paul Young. Yep. I had the same hair as Paul Young, actually, during that time period.
All right.
But yeah, and a little bit of Romeo Void too. A little bit of Romeo Void. A little bit of everything. Missing Persons, you know. But I was a new waver, you know. So some kids were rock and roll, like they only listened to AC/DC and Zeppelin and Black Sabbath. But I was.
Hold that thought.
Hold
that thought, Kevin. We got to take a break and talk about our sponsors here. We'll be right back, folks.
Yep.
Don't go anywhere. Kevin, don't get out of the car.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
That's a sure thing, folks. You're going to have to serve somebody. That's
Absolutely.
music by my great guest today, my friend and brother, Mr. Kevin Max. And I just want to thank him again for being here. He's got a busy day today with family, and I appreciate you taking the time out to come here and talk with us, Kevin.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
Okay, we were talking about your high school stuff, and but before we get to that, that's Bob Dylan's tune, "You Gotta Serve Somebody," which is out on Kevin's new EP. And you were telling me during the break that you got some good news about that EP today.
Well, yeah, it's a busy month for me in July, which we'll see that EP being released, which is several songs that I covered that kind of are in the rock and roll genre, but have spiritual lyrics. I call it spiritualized. And Bob Dylan, obviously, with "Gotta Serve Somebody," and basically, lots of Bob Dylan songs that you could draw, spiritual correlations. But that one, I felt like I had to do it. I love that song. And at the same time I'm releasing the EP, I'm releasing a pop single to radio called "Plans," which just went up on MPE today for stations to listen to it and check it out. And we've already got a couple of big stations adding it, so I'm pretty pumped about that. Completely different sound, though. That's more of a pop radio thing, whereas the "Serve Somebody" EP is definitely rock and roll. So I love to kind of go back and forth between many different musical worlds,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love Plans. I listened to it last night. It's great. Really cool. And I'm really, what I like most is that you like electronica. I love electronica.
Yes.
And and I was sitting here listening to some of your stuff, and I was going, dude, that's great. Why isn't he doing more of that stuff? And I just got this picture. Have you heard of a band called Netsky?
Netsky? No, I haven't.
They're they're an electronic band, and it's three pieces: 2 keyboards and a drummer. And the drummer plays electronic drums, of course, and they got it pretty dialed in for their live shows. But that's what I was visualizing and hearing when I was listening to your stuff. That kind of presentation would be great too.
I love that. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. All right. Here's something I want to know. How did you get to Liberty University?
By car. Somebody drove me and kicked me out and said, "You got to go do this." And then I was actually kicked out. I was ejected.
That was my next question.
Yeah, I was ejected within 2 semesters of the school. Actually, we won't get into details, but
oh, come on.
Yeah, I'm not really good under really staunch and strict rules. I'm not a really good regulation kind of guy. I try, and then just something happens. So it could be the Irish in me that constantly loves a good debate. I don't know, but I made it through my freshman year, barely, and then they handed me my hat, so to speak, and I had the choice of going back the next year or not. And my dad said to me, "Hey, look, you can sit here on the farm and shovel horse manure, or you can go back to school and prove to me that you can do this right and not mess up ever again." And in so many words. And I said, "Okay, I'll go back and give it a shot." And I really at that point had to kind of tweak my attitude a little bit, and I realized, okay, you decided you're going to do this. You want to make your parents happy, and at that point, I really felt like, my relationship with the Lord had always been really interesting. Where I've always had this really fascinating relationship with God, and I just had a heart-to-heart with him before I went back there, and I just said, "Okay, look, if I go back there, will you find me somebody that I can relate to and that I can be friends with?" Because I just didn't relate to anybody there. And the next semester I went back, I met Mike and Toby, and we started DC Talk, and the rest was kind of history. But it's interesting. Had I not gone back after being kicked out, I would never have met the guys in DC Talk. So.
Now, did you start the band, The Connection, when you went back, or was that during the first? That was prior
to my ejection.
Okay.
And Connection Band was interesting. I mean, it had been started by somebody else in the school, but they disbanded, and so we took it. We were the second string of Connection Band, and it was the only rock and roll band on campus. And I remember one Halloween, I decided to play the gymnasium for like a private party, and I dressed up, like Count Dracula, and we started covering bands like U2 and Beastie Boys and Rod Stewart, and I got in a lot of trouble for that. If you can imagine Liberty University, and I'm singing like a Beastie Boys song, it didn't go over really well.
And dressing like Dracula.
Well, and I had a cape on and everything, and so it's kind of like, all right, the guy with makeup and a cape on, he's not really fitting within our structure,
Right.
So, but honestly, I mean, I had a gut check, and I had a heart check, and I believe that the Lord just kind of told me to grow up, and I went back and met the other two guys, and I started doing this.
How did you meet them?
Yeah, I mean, we knew of each other because Connection, strangely enough, and this is another story in itself, but Connection Band, actually, we were contracted to sing at PTL for one summer. And it was the summer that Jim Baker was ejected from PTL. And Falwell came in and kind of took over PTL for a little bit. I don't know if you remember that. And we were offered a chance to play PTL's like water park stage for the whole summer. Okay. And so we went and we performed CCM hits and did our own songs on this little floating dock stage for a whole summer. And that's when we started kind of writing our own stuff. And that's when I met Toby and Mike. They heard about me and heard about what I was doing. Then I got kicked out, and then I came back, and I was like, man, I might need to hang out with these guys because they're a little bit more put together. They've got a better group of friends. They're a little bit more, they're a little wiser than I am. So I started hanging out with them, and Toby had this demo tape that he and Michael Tate had already made, and it was called Christian Rhymes to a Rhythm. And I was like, wait a second. I mean, this is rap. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, this is hip hop. And I was like, okay. So I expected, of course, Michael Tate to, be the rapper and Toby to be doing something else. But when it became the inverse of that, or the reverse of that, I was like, this is interesting. And so then they brought me in as kind of like the rock singer. and we started playing around campus together. And it was kind of weird. It was like immediate where when we started playing together, people just started talking. So there was an immediate buzz on what we were doing, which was kind of cool and unique, you know? Two white guys and a brother doing strange music together in 1986.
So how long were you doing this on campus? I mean, how many years were you guys at Liberty?
We were there for literally a year and change, you know? Like when I came back, I don't even think I finished out a whole year of school before we got contracted through Forefront in Nashville. Toby started sending a demo tape we made at school. We made this demo tape, which would become the first album, DC Talk, DC Talk. And Forefront, we got, you know, rejected by a ton of people before Forefront was like, oh, we like this, you know? And so then we moved to Nashville. I mean, I hadn't even started my sophomore year, I don't think. And as far as credits go, Toby had graduated and was either going for his a second, you know, degree, or maybe even finished that. Tate was close to finishing. So when we left for Nashville, you know, it was kind of like I was happy. School is out, and came to Nashville and started touring immediately with bands like DeGarmo and Key and people that, you know, Forefront had. Yeah.
How did you come up with the name DC Talk? Does it have a specific, any particular meaning?
That was Toby's like hip hop moniker, basically. So he was DC Talk, you know. So when he's on the first album and he's saying like, I'm DC Talk, and I'd like to say I rock the mic in a kicking way. He was DC Talk, and Michael Tate and I were just the background singers. Well, actually, Michael Tate and I were called the One Way Crew.
Really?
So Toby was DC Talk, and Tate and I were the One Way Crew. But you know, we amalgamated into DC Talk over the years. Obviously, the three of us. Yeah.
Toby didn't mind giving it up, huh?
No, because he knew the
for the greater good.
Yeah, he had to share a little bit to go to that next plateau.
Yeah. But did it? I mean, how did it mean anything for him? I mean, what's DC Talk? What is that?
I think because he grew up in Washington D.C. area, you know. Okay. Both Tate and Toby grew up in the D.C. area, so I mean, he was a rapper, and he grew up in D.C. So there you go, DC Talk. Did
they go to Liberty together?
Yes, they did. In fact, they were really, really great friends before I even got into the mix. So they had done like I said, they had done this demo tape together called Christian Rhymes to a Rhythm. And the first time I heard it, I was like, man, this is the strangest thing I've ever heard, because it was Toby rapping and then Tate kind of singing almost like this gospel. It was weird. It was like putting, for lack of a better example, is putting like Fresh Prince with like Luther Vandross, you know, and trying to make that work, you know, and it was definitely interesting, you know.
It was definitely.
So when they added me, who's like trying to be like, I don't know, like Simon Le Bon or something, they added me, and then it was like really, really bizarre. So
yeah. Yeah, Simon Le Bon.
Yes,
that's good.
I tried hard to look like Simon Le Bon. Yeah.
Okay. So Forefront Records took you on, huh? Was that hard to do, or were they just knocked over?
No, they were into it, and our deal was not great, as you can imagine. In the 80s, you know, first time deal for, you know, a Christian and contemporary artist. Those weren't really good record deals, but they were smart enough to know to put us out on the road and really capture that. And we worked on the live show quite seriously in the early days. And we developed a show that, you know, was pretty dialed in even by the second record. I mean, we knew what we were doing on stage. So by the time the third record rolled around, I mean, we had great production. I mean, we knew how to put on a show. And at that time, then we were touring with people like Michael W. Smith and different you know, pop groups that were out there. And they'd throw, you know, DC Talk was interesting. I mean, we toured with Smitty, and man, our crowd became so big like overnight that, I mean, sometimes we'd flip flop and Smitty would open, you know, because
really,
I mean, DC Talk got pretty big pretty quickly. Yeah. And it was interesting because it just was almost like overnight people really got what we were trying to do, and radio did too, which, you know, was interesting for the times. In the 90s, you could put the kind of music we were making on the radio alongside of stuff like Michael W. Smith and alongside of stuff like Rich Mullins, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know about that part of it. I remember the tour you did with Smitty. Actually, man, I had wanted to get on that tour myself with Smitty, but didn't work out that time. But the next time, it worked out. But
yeah,
you know, I just thought you guys were great, you know, and I can see how your crowd grew, and I think that's great. Smitty let, you know, the management and all that sort of stuff could see that and work it out and let you guys take turns opening the show. You know, that doesn't happen all the time, you know?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. You know, I remember a time when we were on tour with DeGarmo and Key early on, and we got off the stage and people were still chanting DC Talk like into DeGarmo and Key's like intro music. And
no.
And Eddie, or no, it was Dana Key. Dana Key was like standing side stage, and he goes, "They want you, they got you," and threw Toby the mic. Was like, you know, go out there and do another song and quiet these people down, you know. And
okay,
I
man,
think that's
we gotta take another break here. We gotta take another break here.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt you. We'll be right back, folks. Stay tuned for more Kevin Max.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on InterTalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on InterTalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on InterTalkRadio.com.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
Across the sea into my soul, it reaches into where I cannot hide, setting my feet upon the road. My heart is old, it holds my memories. My body burns a gem like flame, somewhere between the soul and soft machine.
All right, that's my guest, Mr. Kevin Max, the Max Factor. Man, I love that.
Maximize.
Yes, I love that rendition. You know, I've heard so much of your music last night, and, you know, and in reading about you and discovering so many things about you that, you know, I wasn't aware of, you know, and music that you've recorded as a solo artist that I wasn't aware of. Yeah, it's great. Great career, man.
I've done a lot, man. I've done a lot.
You have. You've done a lot of music, a lot of acting
that people don't know about.
Like yeah, I know.
I need to change that.
We got to make them know. Let's change that with this radio show right here. Yes, let's do that. Matter of fact, people, while we're on that subject, Kevin is coming back next week for another hour. So if something you want us to talk about, just send me a Facebook post or go to Intertalk Radio and leave a comment there, and we'll try to get to your request. But right now, I want to talk about all the records you guys did at Forefront Records. And, man, it's so successful. I mean, your first record comes out, and, you know, it introduces you to everybody. And then New Thing comes out, Free at Last, Jesus Freak. I mean, from New Thing on, it's like gold and platinum. What was that like? And what was it like touring and that experience of being that successful?
Well, man, I mean, you know, it when you're living it, it's a lot of work. And it's honestly like we were so busy that, you know, when we would get the awards or the accolades, you didn't really have time to enjoy them because it was either back on the road or back into the studio again. So we had a great work ethic. We enjoyed performing. We enjoyed pushing ourselves, competing with ourselves almost as artists, to try to come up with the best music that we could within the parameters of what we had. And, you know, I attributed a lot of that to Toby, you know, really wanting to kind of become the thing in music where, you know, it was almost like a positive alternative, you know? And you know, I grew up on alternative rock and roll. So to me, you know, I wanted to push the envelope, and he was pushing it in a really positive way, you know, and, really being take no prisoners with his lyrics and letting people know what he believed from a faith standpoint. And Michael and I the same. I mean, we all were believers, and we wanted to do something cool. We wanted to kind of almost compete with the general market, and not really compete with anybody in Christian music, but to compete with what was out there in the general music world. And so, you know, the album Free at Last, Jesus Freak, Supernatural specifically, I mean, we were competing with REM. We were competing with Seal. We were trying hard to get on the radio, but make a long lasting impression with these songs and with lyrics that meant something. weren't just like baby food, but were steak and potatoes, and wanted to give people thoughts about how we lived our lives. And the cool thing of being an interracial group, I mean, we saw a lot of racial tension, at shows, early on, just people like going, wow, yeah. And we, I mean, to this day, I mean, I remember things that would happen, from gas stations to wherever, where, we'd be in some, small southern town, and somebody would say something to Tate, and we'd just be all up on top of somebody immediately. But it was like we lived that out a little bit in different places, and so that social commentary made its way into our songs, and so we talked about things. We talked about stuff that we went through in songs like Between You and Me and like Colored People and stuff like that. And then we obviously had a very specific intent with spiritual lyrics and trying to point people towards the truth and the gospel. And so it was interesting because on one hand, we wanted to compete, with whoever was at the top. And the other hand, we wanted to be very honest and true about our faith. And so, Jesus Freak was a great example. I mean, we got played on MTV, we got played on the radio. But we were like, all of a sudden this subject of scrutiny, like, oh, these guys, just charted on the charts between Kiss and Marilyn Manson, but they believe in God. And so it put us in a very interesting space to like be real about what we were singing about and what we were talking about.
And I just had no idea that you guys were experiencing any sort of racial tension during that time.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, it was like early 90s. I mean, we would do shows and we would hear people talking about it, and specifically we played a school. I'm not going to name the state, but we were down in the South and very segregated audience. And by the end of the show, I mean, everybody were coming together towards the center, and it was just like a really amazing moment where it was like, I mean, we were able to literally, and I hate to say this, but break down walls of stereotypes because of who we were, Yeah. And in the same way, we played in Belfast, Ireland, years later on the Jesus Freak tour, and we saw Protestant and Catholic people coming together for this show, and it was kind of unprecedented. In Ulster Hall in Belfast, they were talking about it, how this Christian rock band brought some people together. So it wasn't us. It wasn't us, obviously. I mean, God was using us, and we were letting Him move in what we did. But
now, did you get any kickback from colored people?
I mean, a little bit. When we started going after that idea, again, we had a lot. We had a lot of freedom because we were an interracial group. It's like a bunch of white guys making that song would have been a little bit strange, but we felt the freedom to make that statement. It's like, and it wasn't just black and white. It was every color of the rainbow is equal. And it's kind of like. And I grew up, without a care in the world like that, and no racist ideas, and not even seeing any racist stuff. But it wasn't until I, became a member of DC Talk that I actually saw people, acting strangely and having these ignorant ideas, and it just like opened my mind up, and I'm like, wow, people actually treat other people this horribly, and it still happens. And so we got pretty intense about it for a while. We wouldn't say we were activists, but we definitely talked about it quite a bit, and
that's cool. Yeah.
and still do,
Mm-hmm. By the time you guys
we've come
made
a long way.
Supernatural,
We've come a long way, though. Come a long way.
Yeah. When you made Supernatural, you had the big machine behind you then, man. Virgin Records. Did that like kick up the ante a little bit as far as exposure and touring and stuff?
Definitely. I mean, we were signed to Virgin on Jesus Freak, actually. But the tail end of Jesus Freak, we were signed by Virgin. But yeah, like going into Supernatural writing, sessions and stuff, we began writing Supernatural record at Miles Copeland's castle in France. I know it sounds crazy. But he owned a chateau in France, and he would have these writers seminars at his chateau, and he would mix up all different types of writers to write during this week. So the week that we went, it was like Carole King, and it was like this guy that wrote for PJ Harvey and a bunch of other bands. It was us. It was this country writer. It was just all over the board, and we would all get together and write songs. And the first big song we wrote there was with Sting's guitar player, Dominic Miller. And Dominic walked in the room with Mark Hudson, and both of them sat down and said, "We're going to write a hit." I'm like, "Okay, here we go."
Which song was that?
I said, "You know how to do that?" We wrote "My Friend So Long." My Friend So Long. We wrote "My Friend So Long" with Dominic and Mark, and then we wrote "It's Killing Me" with a guy named Greg Wells, who was there because Carole King's daughter was his fiance or girlfriend, I think at the time. They got married after that. So it was kind of like, man, it was just bizarre. I mean, just sitting there at dinner table talking to Carole King.
Yeah, I bet.
And then,
wow.
Yeah.
And in a chateau in France.
A chateau in France. And then Miles would come, he would walk in once in a while in his tweed jacket and, kind of stare people down. Like, "Are you writing songs? Are you writing hits yet?"
Wow, that's cool. So how did you tour after that? You were always
how much did we
headlining
tour
after that, correct? No, how did you tour after that? It was
how did we tour?
Always headlined after that.
Yeah, we were basically headlining. I mean, we never, we did some co-bill stuff, but mostly our own show. Supernatural was another great tour because we really were pushing the envelope of what we could do visually as well. And Dan Pitts, our manager, had a lot to do with, really digging deep into archives and coming up with really cool things to put, at that point it was projection still, little bit of digital stuff happening, but, that was 1999, 2000. So we're still dealing with a big projector screen,
Yeah. Yeah. And so he was, he was the historian.
Historian. Yeah. He'd go in and like really find some really cool stuff. And we'd talk about it. And we started that actually, Free at Last. We kind of come up with some stuff like that during the Free at Last tour, but it wasn't until Jesus Freak that we started playing with that. And then Supernatural really kind of, got that dialed in, and, I remember seeing U2 on the Achtung Baby tour, mid-90s and realizing, what they were able to do with TV and video screens and just going, man, that's where we need to go. That's the future,
Well, you guys certainly made an impact, and it's like one writer said, you were almost like the Beatles. Your influence and how the freshness.
Wow.
And you were the first to kind of go there, and a lot of great things happened for you and because of you. And
definitely, I mean, I wouldn't say that we were like the Beatles, but I will say that, you know, we were blessed to be in some great situations, music at the right time, really. You know, music, I think, in my opinion, is a lot about timing.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I lived through... well, go ahead.
Here we are at the end of segment 3. Thank you, Kevin, for being on the show. Kevin's going to be back next Tuesday, 2, 4, 5. And we're going to get into his solo career at that time. Talk about what's going on now. All right, peace, man. Talk to you.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.